After we've created our VLANs, we need to be concerned with setting up the trunks. And the trunks are the lines that carry more than one VLAN. So to an alternate switch or to a router is where the trunks would be configured. So the line right here, which goes from my switch to my router, again, if we look at this configuration, we have it set up now that we've created the engineering VLAN, we've created an HR VLAN, they've been created in the switch port, that each one of these access ports, which has an end device connected to it, is configured to be in the appropriate VLAN. What we need to do now is to make sure that we have this trunk line configured as a trunk so we can carry multiple VLANs on it. The other place where you might see a trunk line is if we determine that we've now populated this switch. We've got 24 people in here. We've got more people moving in. They've just made more space available to us. So we buy another 24-port switch. We put this 24-port switch in the same closet. It's going to be working together with the same VLAN structure. I put a connection between the two. That wire as well, right there, between the two switches becomes a trunk. So whichever these ports are, we want to define them as trunks. Again, with DTP, Dynamic Trunking Protocol, they have the potential to negotiate this trunk. If it's in dynamic desirable, the dynamic auto, and we put one end in, the other end will automatically configure, or they'll both configure depending on how you have it set up. We don't want to leave this to risk, and I don't really want end devices being able to configure or set themselves up as a trunk. So we're going to forget about this, and when we put these new devices in, when we set them up, we actually want to go to the interface and set up the trunks appropriately. So let me drop into the switch here and take a look at that configuration. So this is interface FA01 that's going up to the router, FA01. So we'll jump into the switch. Somehow my switch got reset here. We'll put it back to the screen where we want it. And we'll go to global config, interface FA01, switch port, mode trunk. And that actually puts that port into a trunk mode. EXIT. If I go back and show VLAN, I can actually look at this now and see that FA01 does not exist in here because it's a trunk line. So it doesn't show up in my active ports because it's not associated with a VLAN. It's associated with all VLANs. So show trunk. Oops. Show VLAN trunk. Show VLAN. Show VLAN brief. That's not what I wanted. Show, I know what it is. Show interface trunk. There we go. Takes me just a second. Show interface trunk, FA01 is my trunk. It's carrying all the different VLANs that we have. We've allowed VLANs 1, 30, 50, and 100 on here, even though we don't have 50 assigned to anything. By default, when we set up a trunk line, we have it available for all VLANs. Here's another funky terminology right here. Native VLAN, VLAN 1. The native VLAN is the VLAN that any untagged traffic that makes its way onto the trunk gets assigned to. So I have a trunk line defined. If the VLAN tag says VLAN 30, then it gets put out all the ports associated with VLAN 30. If it says VLAN 50, it goes out all the ports associated with VLAN 50. If it doesn't have a VLAN tag when it goes up that wire, what does it go out? It goes out all ports associated with VLAN 1. Again, for us, that might not be necessarily the best course of action because VLAN 1 is where the switch IP address is. So VLAN 1 is the management address for the switch. It's also the default for all the other ports in the switch until they're assigned to a VLAN. So again, best practice, a lot of times we'll assign that native VLAN to an unused VLAN. Hey, we're not using 100. Why don't we make the trunk on port 100? So we can say switch port oh my gosh. Switch port, no, it's not here. Which one did we set this up on? Oh, it's on interface FA01. So interface FA01, switch port, trunk, native 100. Native VLAN 100. And don't you love that help functionality? And sometimes it gets a little bit different between switches, so you just go along with what you remember. If it doesn't work out quite right, no big deal. Hit your question mark, look and see what the syntax wants. Syntax checker is put in place and we're good to go. So if I come back out of here, exit, show interface, FA switch show interface, well, show interface is trunk. It now shows me my native VLAN is sitting up here at 100. So we've now configured our trunk port. So in our infrastructure, we have the switch configured. If we look at our running config, show run, we have the switch FA01 configured as trunk. It's going up to our router. It's set up to have a native VLAN 100, and I'll monitor VLAN 100 because there shouldn't be anything on 100. If I see any traffic on VLAN 100, I'll know something is going wrong because I don't have any ports in 100. That means that there are untagged frames going up my trunk, and that wouldn't be a good thing. Interface FA02 and 5 are in VLAN 30, FA03 and 4 in VLAN 50, and all my other interfaces are shut down because there's nothing there. So we are looking good.